Breaking news, guys. Breaking news.
White House is in the hood. All right.
Daniel, all right. After we listen to this for about 5 minutes, we have to go to the other breaking news. I believe the war is over. Vinny has a video out.
Okay. What Citizen says is the incident was reported at the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest. Multiple news outlets reported hearing gunfire from reporters close to the White House. Per DC News Now, a lockdown is underway. Members of the press who are at the scene have been moved indoors. The address was for the incident has changed to 17th Southwest or 17th Street Northwest and Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest. The north lawn was reportedly cleared as Secret Service agents rushed reporters into the White House. Per CBS News, a CBS reporter stated that the gunfire
Still
sounded
no Billy
as if
Bean
two
yet.
weapons were
Okay.
firing. There's an increased Secret Service presence around the grounds, and yeah, that's it for now. Let me pull this up. That's crazy, man.
Alô, amigos que acompanham aqui o Scarpa.
Yeah.
Look at a rest. Boom. You don't see the tape?
Okay, I got more live feeds too.
E essa é a cena.
Oh, we got the full screen version here, which
Muitos policiais aqui, a imprensa já
I think the
toda
full screen.
aposta aqui para saber o que realmente aconteceu. A informação que temos é que agente do serviço secreto
We'll
disparou
come back to it, you
contra
guys.
alguém, mas não sabemos.
We'll come back when we get more information on it.
from the Trump administration, and is not bombs, as potentially referenced here in a late night post from Dan Scavino, the voice of the president. A position of strength, always with the Trump administration. Peace with Iran is what may be dropping in the coming hours. President Trump and his team have just announced that they are ready to make a deal. It's 4 p.m. on a Saturday, and President Trump has been working hard at the White House since early this morning. This man is focused and determined. This from President Trump's communication director, as President Trump canceled all weekend plans, canceled all of his Labor Day plans. He's missing his son's wedding, Don Jr., and President Trump is locking in order to get peace with Iran. Trump reveals details of a very good call with world leaders, says an agreement for peace with Iran has been negotiated. The final hurdles are yet to be cleared. What could the final hurdle be? Well, the final hurdle could probably be the memes that President Trump, the United States of the Middle East, this is Donald Trump posting this today. It could be Netanyahu. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It could be President Trump working this deal out with Israel, or better yet, proving that Israel doesn't actually control our president. I suppose time will tell, but let's go ahead and look at the breaking news from our president and from the reporters outside of the White House. Exclusive, the U.S. and Iran are expected to announce finalization of a peace deal to end the fighting on all fronts by Sunday afternoon, potentially tonight. A source close to the negotiations tells the Washington Times. Trump held breakthrough call with Gulf leaders on Iran. Trump is expected to inform Netanyahu of the deal's terms tonight.
Trump, as you mentioned, telling Axios that he would hold a meeting with negotiators today to go over this latest deal with Iran. And one regional diplomat telling Fox News' Trey Yingst in the Middle East, quote, regional leaders were supportive of the progress and of the breakthroughs that President Trump achieved in these talks. We also heard the president say that it was 50-50 whether or not there would be a deal reached.
Well, that's changed. The
ding. That's the sound of a Tuesday night win. Grain Trust. Find it in the freezer.
Why are you paying $80 for garbage internet?
This is Ryoko Pro. It's a pocket-sized Wi-Fi hotspot.
odds have now skyrocketed, ladies and gentlemen. National security top officials called to the White House for an emergency meeting. Something big is going to be announced soon. A regional source says that all Arab and Muslim leaders on the call with Trump Saturday urged him to go ahead with the deal to de-escalate the situation. The message from everyone was, please stop the war for the benefit of the whole region. According to the regional source, the negotiations are moving well, and the media hope to conclude the one-page framework agreement tomorrow, announce it, and the mediators want to initiate negotiations on a detailed agreement to finalize what's happened and what has happened. J.D. Vance made an unplanned return to Washington. His motorcade raced the White House, no advance notice. Trump summoned a full national security team, Hegseth, Kane, the whole National Security Council, not a briefing, a decision meeting. Trump scheduled a 1 p.m. call with the leaders of Arab nations. It went very well. The Rome round of U.S.-Iran talks ended without a breakthrough. Iran still refusing to give up uranium enrichment. We'll see what happens. Trump had already called off a planned attack on Iran. Vance has logged 20-plus hours of back-channel sessions, and Iran rejected the other U.S. proposal outright, ladies and gentlemen. But what's happening now is something totally and wholly different. The Islamic regime has surrendered, according to Ahmad Tatha, Emirati expert in strategic and political affairs. It has surrendered the terms. If it breaks them, it will be broken. Increasingly isolated in the region, Trump called the Gulf leaders before making a final decision, a sign that the region is now closer to America than it was before and will play a major role in shaping the next steps. What comes next may be even more dangerous for the regime itself in Iran. Unrest at home, anger in the streets, and calls for change that could erupt as the war comes to an end. In the region, America and allies such as NATO and the EU may use this pause to prepare for the next phase, now convinced that the regime's missiles and drones threaten not only Gulf nations, but also the global economy. In the battle, the regime has suffered heavy losses, Navy, aircraft, leadership, soldiers, economy, strategic capacities, the next round, it may not survive it. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is President Trump right now, seconds ago, saying what happened and where we are. A critical note with all of the work that's been done. President Trump has this deal at the 1 yard line, is what he's saying. I'm in the Oval Office right now. I just had a very good call with all the Arab leaders, Egypt, Pakistan, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Jordan, and Bahrain, concerning the Islamic Republic of Iran and the things related to the Memorandum of Understanding for Peace. An agreement has largely been negotiated subject to finalization between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran. The various other countries listed will also be in the peace agreement. Separately, I have a call with Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, which likewise went very well. Final aspects of detail went very well with Bibi Netanyahu. That's not what we hear. We'll get to that in just 1 second. Final aspects of the deal are currently being discussed and will be announced shortly. In addition, many other elements of the agreement, Strait of Hormuz, will be open, says President Trump. This is the first real sign in a long time that Trump may be willing to yank Israel's chain like Reagan had to do. It also lends a bit more credibility to the sideline Netanyahu stories. He is president of the United States. He can do what he pleases, which is obviously something that we've argued, right? Nobody bosses Trump around. It's good for Trump to do what is in the best interest of America. Thank you to the president of Turkey. He says President Trump is the leader the world has been waiting for. Now comes the dunking on the neocons, which I'm here for. Looks like President Trump has thankfully stopped listening to war hawks like you. That's not a problem for anyone but you. Okay. This is Mark Levin saying, Houston, there may be a problem. And there are many reports that Bibi Netanyahu's hair is literally on fire. Obviously, the Domino pizza tracker has been popping off as the military works very, very hard. Very pleased to read this. Everybody is really liking this news. An agreement has largely been negotiated subject to the finalization to other countries listed. I'm going to need you to make sure Mark Levin keeps reading this. U.S. and Iran expected to announce a draft peace deal by tomorrow. And Donald Trump saying Bibi Netanyahu will do whatever I say.
What have you said to Prime Minister Netanyahu about Iran and how long to hold off on strikes?
He's fine. He'll do whatever I want him to do.
Yeah, you are the president of the United States, bro. Let's go. Trump says Netanyahu will do whatever I want him to do. I guess we'll find out. Arab source tells me that POTUS held a meeting with Arab leaders. It's all coming together. The call was very positive. Good progress being made. Regional leaders very supportive, very positive. Iran sent a counter proposal to the United States of America. Trump accepted it. Most of the administration accepted it. Trump called the Gulf countries, and they are satisfied. Now he's speaking to Netanyahu. If Trump does not accept this deal, then it's clear who's calling the shots. Well, ladies and gentlemen, very good signs. In the time to end this thing, says Matt Walsh, an enormous amount of problems to fix in our own country. The call was very positive. Good progress is being made. It's true. Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu is very concerned about the current peace deal and urged President Trump to launch another round of strikes against Iran. Apparently, Netanyahu was enraged that he wasn't called and wasn't read in on all of this. Apparently, his hair is on fire, quote unquote. President Trump achieved a very positive breakthrough here, as per Fox News. Details will be announced imminently. Netanyahu is beside himself after furious phone call with Trump that left the Israeli leader with his hair on fire. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the warmongers are angry, and that's a very good thing. Lindsey Graham is freaking out. It's important that we get this right. Yeah, everyone's dunking on Lindsey Graham. All Lindsey Graham cares about is war, death, destruction, hates peace, and lusts for war. He does not care about how much bloodlust damages our country because he does not care about this country. This man is a cancer on our body politic. Graham angry tweeting means the deal is done. We're all wondering why this war started in the first place and concluding that it's war hawks like you who persuaded President Trump it was a good idea. It wasn't. And ladies and gentlemen, I tend to agree, of course, with Matt Walsh here. I want to win. We need to win. We need to win in this country. It's hard to win in this country and deliver the American people when gas is $6 a gallon, when groceries are still utterly unaffordable, along with, of course, who can even think about buying a home. It's very, very hard to pitch some of the very good things that this administration is doing when there's sort of this dark cloud of Iran hanging over the heads of everyone here, and it, it's effed up everything. So enough. Like, there's not a single person in America that really thinks about Iran all day. I don't know anybody who does. I don't want to think about Ukraine either. I don't want to think about China. I want to think about America. I want this country to be first, and this is the way to do it. Put these foreign entanglements to bed, and let's be done with it. That's my opinion on this channel. We support the president. I'm not second guessing the president. I'm not the commander in chief, but we do understand the political realities of our country. That's what we're here to save. So let's get about saving it. It's your boy Benny. Pray for peace today and pray for wisdom for President Trump right now, please. See ya.
Hey, that's a big one there, you guys. Big video. A lot of stuff going on, Carol. So I got an 8-minute clip from Fox, you guys, and then one of our the funny lady, let's call her a cat lady, has one too.
I'm here to help whack
The press pool says heard gunshots fired near the White House, and reporters there are currently on lockdown. One correspondent says they heard multiple shots and Secret Service telling them to get down. ABC is reporting that the White House North Lawn has been cleared by Secret Service. We are currently monitoring the situation. We'll let you know when we get more information. Kevin, I want to take it back to you, DC resident here. Yep. It feels like these things just keep happening.
Yeah, and especially when you consider how close to a major thoroughfare the White House is. If you go down 17th, which is just on the other side of the Eisenhower Executive Office building, there's tons of traffic over there. You could easily hear gunshots, and it's also accessible. You can walk up and down the promenade right along Pennsylvania, and so unless it's blocked off, sometimes they block it off. But things like this do happen. The electromagnetic locks engage immediately. And when they say you are locked in that building. You can pull, push, you cannot get out. If you're on the North Lawn when something like this happens, and that's happened to me before, Secret Service comes out literally out of everywhere. The guard shack, the bushes, and they escort you all the way back into the building, and then they clear the lawn. But in this circumstance, we've seen this happen, sadly, too often. Hopefully it's nothing, but obviously they're watching it very carefully. And as we get more, we'll pass that along.
Alicia, these reporters, obviously a lot of presence there today due to this Iran potential peace deal. So a lot of activity, a lot of interest, of course, in what's going on in D.C. and in the White House. What do you make of the press? Again, we just had the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I mean, this feels, to Kevin's point, maybe this is not unheard of, but it feels like this is a disturbing pattern if this is indeed something horrific.
Probably a lot of the correspondents who were on lockdown were also on lockdown inside the ballroom the night of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So they're dealing with this yet again. Secret Service, thank goodness, on it. But once again, here we are once again. And that's the problem. Again, like you mentioned, we don't know if this is a shooting that happened outside the White House that has nothing to do with the White House. The proximity makes it very concerning and makes us all wonder, why are we talking about this again? Why is this happening again? Why this president possibly again dealing with these fears of gunshots revolving around this administration is not right. And it hurts, like, to see this happening. Are you seeing something?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, and I love what you had to say there. The pictures you're looking at right there on your screen, that is 17th that we just mentioned on the other side of the Eisenhower Executive Office building. You're going to see, if you look to the right, you see the dark colored vehicles there. Secret Service, they typically collect there. Usually there's between 6 and 8 Secret Service vehicles right there as you have an opportunity to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm looking carefully to see if there's any movement north, because as you go north, there's actually a pretty large building set aside just for Secret Service and other security officials. So as we take a look there, as we're watching now an ambulance come down, that's obviously concerning. And we're looking for more information as we get it. Of course, we'll keep passing that along. Tommy and Alicia, what did you have to add?
Well, we haven't heard of any injuries just yet, but we're continuing to check to see if we're getting any new confirmation on what this could have been. Yeah, you mentioned the ambulance there. That's the part that makes us all start to wonder, right?
Yeah.
Again, is something else going on?
Or the precaution just because
it could be.
We're not
yes.
taking any chances, right? So we don't want to jump to any conclusions. But, you know, Tom, to this point, you were sitting at the table with us the day of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and then Kevin and Alicia were here to the wee hours of the morning. We don't know what this is, but the Secret Service, law enforcement, they have to take every precaution if they hear anything that sounds like gunshots this close to the White House in D.C. I mean, I would expect this posture.
Yes, and after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, there was about a week of people on, all sorts of networks saying, "How did this happen?" And they were kind of after the Secret Service. They were saying, "Oh, they should have been more on this." The thing is, this is complicated stuff. The president, the president could be a shut-in. He could stay in the basement. He could stay locked down. But he's out there. He's out not only meeting world leaders. He's going to dinners. He wanted to go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So the White House wants to be active. They want to be out there in the world, and they have to make it as safe as possible. So in that case, I thought, under the current situation, I've been down there. I was only down at that White House Correspondents' Dinner one time. It's multi-level. You can't lock down the whole building.
Yeah.
They did enclose the area where the president was, and they had that under control. That's why they did catch the guy. So at the time, I thought people were giving them a little bit of a hard time. The organizers of the event, the Secret Service, there's only so much you can do.
Right.
Kevin?
Yeah, I was just looking if we can get that shot back. It may have been a local shot there. Actually, that shot went down. We're going to see if we can get that back for you. There was an ambulance setting up there. And what I wanted to mention was, in a situation of this nature, it's not just obviously the Secret Service, it's also Capitol Police, it's Washington Metro Police, and a cadre of other agencies that are all in and around that area. And what's interesting is, to the northwest of the main gate of the White House, where typically the press and other visitors might enter, you do have that collection, as I pointed out right there. In fact, that looks like that may be the guard shack. You do have that entrance, but you also have sort of a crossroads of several different streets. You have Pennsylvania, which moves at an angle. You have 17th, which is north and south. You also have I Street, which crosses just to the north of Lafayette Park. And so you have sort of several blocks of entry to the White House complex. And that's what makes it, to Tom's point, so difficult to engage in a lockdown circumstance like this, because it could be on any side of the White House at any given time, and people have to quickly spring into action. And as we look at some of the pictures, we did see an ambulance pull up there on the upper right-hand side of the screen there. I didn't see anyone getting in or out with respect to personnel, but I think that's something we'll also follow and see if by chance someone may have been hit by gunfire or if this is precautionary.
One other thing right now, the FBI Director Kash Patel has put out a statement on X. FBI is on the scene and supporting Secret Service responding to shots fired near White House grounds. We will update the public as we're able. And folks should remember, today, Don Jr., the president's son, is getting married. And the president himself said that he couldn't go because he had to stay in town in D.C. to continue with these negotiations with regard to Iran. What we don't know just yet is exactly where the president of the United States is as we are watching all of this unfold outside the White House.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now.
Okay, what do you guys think of this photo here? He has 2 of them.
Been taken down by the Secret Service. We don't know if he is unalived or if he has just been neutralized, but a crazed gunman was on the going towards the north lawn of the White House, firing his gun, and the Secret Service took him out. So we have that happening. We have these crazed ass people still trying to take out our president. We have in California, we have a chemical plant that is this close to exploding. The firemen are spraying it with cold water. All they're trying to do is buy time to figure out what they're going to do, because California doesn't have a protocol to do in case of a chemical plant overheating. So if this chemical plant overheats and explodes with the winds out in California, it could affect everybody. The chemicals, it could reach so far, not to mention the destructive, horrific situation that Orange County, California is about to be in. So I just want to give you guys the latest breaking news. Stay tuned. Another one trying to take out our president. Breaking news.
Prophetic alert. Elon Musk has now caused quite the stir by saying that Neuralink is, quote, doing Jesus-level miracles. 21 people have already been implanted with this technology. He talked about getting people eyesight that have lost both eyes. He's talking about people having their eyesight that have been blind from birth, that this technology interfaces with the optical centers in your brain. He said you can actually restore eyesight, will give people eyesight that they've never had before. And then without pausing for effect, he said, you can enable people to walk again, which I think is profound. These are kind of Jesus level things. Like when technologies are hitting Jesus level miracles, it's pretty good. Now, the miracles Jesus did and what technology is doing is totally different and has a totally different root and purpose. Although you want the blind to see, the lame to walk, you want to see people restored. Putting technology on par with Jesus is exactly what is talked about in the book of Revelation. Now, I want to read to you these 2 words from the Lord having to do with this. April 17th, 2024. My light, my word, Elon, my word that is the living and active word, says the Lord. I, the Lord, cannot be placed in a chip, in a link, in artificial intelligence. My essence, who I am, El Shaddai, Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, King of kings and Lord of lords, Adonai, my essence, my power, my spirit is unlike anything man can create, for I am the creator, Elon. It is I who you seek. It is not the technology. For the battle of AI is bubbling over, says the Lord. Seek me while I may be found. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you, Elon. I am not a puzzle. I am not the internal workings of a computer. I, the Lord thy God, am a force unlike any other. I am truth. I am spirit. I encompass the earth. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, the first and the last. I am he who liveth and died, and behold, I am alive forevermore. I am holy. That is what was said on April 17th, 2024. And now this is what Elon Musk is coming out with. You need to pray for him, because this is exactly the cobblestone to the beast system in the book of Revelation. Although you want to see the blind see, the lame walk, the deaf hear, technology is trying to artificially replicate who Almighty God is. So continue to be watching right now. Be in the Word of God every single day. Keep the faith.
Okay, man, the latest on there. This one has, she has a good one. This one, I think, important one.
Around for far too long. Check this out. Breaking news. A Minnesota judge has just sentenced the mastermind behind the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, Amy Bach. She just got more than 41 years in prison.
42 years for stealing around $250 million from taxpayers. These fraudsters are now literally on the run. This man jumped out of a 4th-story balcony because he was involved in a $90 million scandal.
CALL FBI, or go to the internet at www.tips.
Well, guess what? This man was arrested around 3 p.m. with a count to conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud and 4 counts of healthcare fraud. This man had pocketed hundreds of thousands of dollars and is no longer getting away with it. Neither is this woman, Violetta, a doctor in California who was found guilty for carrying out $45 million in a fraud scheme. More and more, we are seeing people actually being convicted. Amy Bach now facing 42 years in jail is absolutely insane. Now that this woman has nothing to lose, she has been calling out Ilhan Omar.
Bach has also implicated Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, whose name appeared in emails and texts during her trial. Bach tells.
Well, what they say, when one falls, the dominoes are going to start falling, right? One after another.
The New York Post that she, quote, struggles to believe that Omar didn't know what was happening in her district. She told Fox something similar. Watch.
I don't know what she knew. I don't know. I know that I was duped by a number of people. We also have seen videos of Safari Restaurant giving out thousands of meals, pallets and pallets of food being distributed. Was there fraud? Yeah. According to the DOJ and the FBI, yes. According to the jury verdict, yes. But how much? And why don't we know that? There's just so many holes and gaps in these cases. Ilhan Omar visited those sites. Why didn't the FBI?
And why did Ilhan Omar pass the Meals Act of 2020, which is said to have created the conditions for feeding our future? And also, Ilhan Omar didn't just visit Safari Restaurant, but they were holding events for her Ilhan for Congress. Definitely not a good look. Now, Ilhan is basically running as much as that guy who jumped out of a 4th-story balcony. She's literally running away from reporters. She has refused to provide any type of documentation. She had until May 5th to explain why her staff in her office was mentioned and involved with Feeding Our Future. And also, she hasn't been working with James Comer to explain how they went from $0 to $30 million in their businesses back down to $0 when everybody pointed out that there was actually no businesses.
Did you ask Minnesota Democrats to block the subpoena for the investigation of Feeding Our Future on the state level?
That was the first video.
The House Republicans are considering investigating Feeding Our Future now.
Nothing to say.
Your role in it, would you cooperate with that subpoena and provide?
We need to make it very clear that the district where Feeding Our Future happened is the district that Ilhan Omar represents. So the fact that she has nothing to say about it or no documents to provide whatsoever is very concerning. And like Amy Bach said, for Keith Ellison or Tim Walz to have had no clue about this hundreds of millions of dollars being lost in fraud, like that would be concerning either way, because either they're ignorant and they're not doing their job, or 2, they were involved. So either way, it looks really, really bad. Honestly, at this point, people are curious as to why Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, and Ilhan Omar, the people high up in politics that allowed this to happen and created it, get away with it, while Amy Bach gets 42 years in jail. So let's listen to what James Comer has to say about all of this.
You have not investigated anything. Here's her. Watch.
House Republicans looking into the net worth of you and your husband. Are you cooperating with that investigation and providing the documents?
Looking into anything. They're just saying those things to get interviews with you guys. There's nothing really happening.
They're saying it's a red flag.
Investigated anything. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't referred me to anybody. He's just saying that so he can get TV interviews because you guys will only talk to them if they say something about me.
So what happened is they did let her know that she was under investigation, but she tries to make it seem like they cannot investigate her family's finances because it all comes from her husband's businesses. But when people are like, well, what happened to the winery and stuff? And then now she says that they're not actually worth anything. Meanwhile, this is happening during this massive fraud scandal. There definitely, most certainly is an investigation. Whether or not she's cooperating with it is a whole other story. And then they were going to subpoena her, but then you had some Democrats who blocked that. Those Democrats are a part of a fraud oversight committee. And so if they actually cared about protecting our cities from fraud at all, then why did they block the subpoena?
Says you haven't investigated anything, Chairman. It's basically all for attention.
Yeah, she's delusional and she knows better. She's trying to say she made a mistake on her financial disclosure form.
A $30 million mistake.
No one makes a $30 million mistake on your financial disclosure form, especially if you don't have any assets. You know, if you're Donald Trump or some very wealthy person, 30 million might be.
And no assets is certainly true, because when they claim all these different businesses with that amount of net worth, you would expect some type of business, real estate, machinery, staff, marketing, and yet all of those things were completely lacking.
Be a rounding error, but for someone who alleges now she has nothing, that's a pretty big rounding error, and it all stems around two basic things. The problem she has, first of all, she asked for an earmark for a project that was later proven to be a fraudulent project that was involved in that Somali scam up there, and then secondly, she claimed her assets were huge because of this winery that we know has been shut down. That according to rumors and press reports, was defrauding investors.
Congressman, thank you for your.
So he calls out the winery, and he also says that she was requesting money. I wish he would have mentioned which specific time, because there has been so many times that she has requested and gotten money to random places that we don't actually know if they were what they claimed to be. I want to invite you to my school.
She did a good job of doing that one. I got an update, you guys.
O'clock this evening. I'm told that a gunman came up near the White House on the west side, what is described to me as Gate 17. This is kind of near 14th Street on the west side of the White House, and came up and brandished some sort of a pistol. We don't know what type of pistol it was, but he then fired toward the White House 3 times. And the United States Secret Service, they returned fire. We don't know how many shots that they got off, and they apparently took the gunman down. Now, sometime in this gunfire exchange, a civilian on the street was struck by this gunfire, and we do not know the condition of that person right now. But the important thing to know is that the gunman who came up with the pistol and was taken down by the Secret Service, and we don't know his condition right now, but he never got inside the perimeter of the White House. And this is according to a senior administration official with direct knowledge of what went down at the White House this afternoon. This was right around 6 o'clock Eastern time.
So, Chad, so if I'm hearing what you said correctly, this was somebody who was just firing in the direction of the White House?
It was something that the Secret Service obviously perceived as a threat. Obviously, we're told that gunfire apparently was directed toward the White House. If you get toward the west side of the White House, and we're trying to figure out precisely where this was, you have the old executive office building, now called the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, which is kind of a big complex if you're working from west to east toward the White House. So we know that he was firing in the direction of the White House, and this is the preliminary report from someone who's very senior and would have direct knowledge of this information. again, a lot of people in town. There was one source that had, questioned me earlier, even before we had this information. There's a lot of motorcyclists in town for the Memorial Day events. They always come for this time, and people thought it might have been, motorcycles backfiring or something like that. There's quite a cacophony of that. But this is clearly someone who came up and was firing at the direction of the White House. And the president, of course, is at the White House today.
Okay, that's the latest. This is one lady here we haven't heard in a while.
Immediately, he started opening the door for Muslims and Sharia, and he did things. He protected the Muslim brotherhoods and others, and then he sent billions of dollars in pallets of cash into Iran, which supports all these groups. I think that was it's all clear, folks, to start working into the United States of America. It's taken a lot of time to kind of slow that down, but they just want to keep going, right?
They want to keep going. They are discounting that, President Trump is going to go in about 2 years, and they're going to have, they're hoping and counting on another Democratic leadership that's going to turn a blind eye, just like Obama. They all operate the same way. And that's why you see the Islamists and the leftists coming together and working together, hoping that, it's only a matter of time. This is a pause under Trump. If we stay long enough in the fight, Trump is going to go away. We're going to continue growing. This is how strong they feel. And that's why we on the conservative side have a window of opportunity right now to organize, to open our eyes in our own communities, to become engaged and involved. And I encourage people, if you are concerned about these issues, please go to actforamerica.org right now, my organization, actforamerica.org, and join us. We are building the firewalls in every state across the country and working with the anti-Sharia caucus to make sure we secure as many states and as many communities as possible while we have a chance under a Republican leadership, so we can protect the country and reverse the damage that the Obama administration and the Biden administration have done to our country.
Yeah, we're going to leave it there, but I'll tell you what, this whole idea of Mamdani in New York and some of these other, these far left Muslim protecting politicians, some of the squad members, it's really, really dangerous. Everything we were talking about 18, 20 years ago is coming to roost right now. And I just wish people saw it then. I don't know if it's too late or not. By the way, Democrats, I agree with you. They're siding with them because they're going to do the same thing. As soon as Trump's gone, they're going to start pushing the cancel culture woke mob back on us. Don't think it's not going to happen. Bridget Gabriel, always good to have you. Chairwoman, Act for America, folks. It's actforamerica.org. Don't forget, sign up. She's great. Bridget, see you again soon.
Okay. All right, let's do a 23-minute one. I want to get important one here, that one channel.
So I called a few contractors, but they all quoted me a hefty $10,000 or.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Underground. This is the Intel update for May 17th through the 23rd, 2026. It's been a very busy week as usual, so let's get right to it. This week, the flashpoints from last week continue to build on all fronts. Here at home, domestic crime and general public foolishness has frequently transitioned into a state of civil unrest in some areas, such as the more visible cases in New Jersey. Similarly, riot season is in full bloom this year within the homeland, with many major U.S. cities being hosted to pop-up parties or other similar rioting just for the sake of rioting. Around our hemisphere, the potential for some kind of entanglement in Cuba continues as the rhetoric has been dialed up on that front, with American military forces being staged within the Caribbean once again. Overseas, our friends in the United Kingdom have had a rough week when it comes to the details coming out regarding the Henry Nowak murder trial, which appears to be another watershed moment for the UK and their two-tier policing system. Around the world, industrial accidents continue to strike petroleum refineries as the global energy crisis continues with no end in sight. In the Middle East, tensions are growing once again as rhetoric from Washington indicates that the United States is interested in reigniting the war once again, in an attempt to break Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, in Africa, an Ebola outbreak has been announced in the Congo, and hantavirus cases continue to be reported around the world, as the previous cruise ship situation has not yet been resolved. All in all, a very busy week once again. A lot of things up in the air and not a whole lot of resolution on many fronts. Moving to strategic movement for this week, there are two main theaters of war that are worth keeping an eye on. Firstly is, of course, the Middle East, where American resupply operations have been conducted as best they can during the ceasefire. All assets and resources are already on station in the Middle East, with the exception of the Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group, which is still in the Atlantic somewhere. Depending on when she departed and how fast she's going, it could take a while before she's on station. I know a lot of people are speculating that the war in Iran is scheduled to begin again this weekend, because there have been some very interesting cases where President Trump has canceled a few functions and rushed back to the White House to be in Washington, just in case national security needs take precedent, which most people seem to think is code word for, yeah, we're going to strike Iran again. And especially considering President Trump also said that we are going to strike Iran this weekend. He said that a few days ago. So this may indeed happen either tonight before this brief comes out, or Sunday night, or Monday night. Who knows? It could happen any day now, or it could never happen. We just don't know, so a lot of this is going to be guesswork. But if they are going to reignite the war, they're going to be launching it again without the Eisenhower being on station. Israel with missile defenses, which is probably going to be her primary mission if she was supposed to replace the Ford. The scheduling and mission set for a lot of these carrier strike groups is thrown all out of whack because this war has required 3 carrier strike groups when normally we have only 1 in the Middle East. So saying exactly which one's replacing who is sometimes quite challenging, and we don't exactly know what the mission is going to be. If the Ike is replacing the Ford, then she's probably going to be on station in the Mediterranean Sea in the Eastern Med just off the coast of Israel. But if she's supposed to transit Suez and go south into the Red Sea, then that might take a couple extra days. There has been some concern with potential attacks or terrorism or something like that within the Suez Canal, because it is, again, a choke point, and a carrier is pretty much a sitting duck when transiting the canal, which is why the Bush Carrier Strike Group, when she arrived on station, she actually went around the long way, around the continent of Africa. So the Eisenhower, if she is indeed intended for CENTCOM and she is indeed headed for the Med, she's probably going to stay in the Med. But again, this is really conjecture and just kind of guesswork, but it's still quite handy to know where a lot of strategic assets are located. And right now, there are a lot of assets in the Middle East ready to continue the fight if that is the chosen course of action. A little bit closer to home, another potential conflict is brewing: Cuba. And we can see this with the strategic movement once again. So 2 days ago, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group arrived in the Caribbean, taking up stations somewhere off the coast of Cuba. This is why it's worth being aware of what high-level strategic military movements are being made, because if we remember, the U.S. parked an aircraft carrier off the coast of Venezuela about 4 months before that operation came to a head. I'm sure many of you were quite annoyed with me for many months talking about how there's an aircraft carrier down there off the coast of Venezuela, but that annoyance actually paid off because we actually did end up launching a little miniature war. Thankfully, it did not come to a full-blown war, and it was really more just a pre-planned raid. But still, that aircraft carrier was an indication. So this is important in the context of Cuba because right now, basically no one thinks that military action is on the table. No one is seriously considering that the United States might actually engage in some kind of military operation in Cuba. That is not really on anybody's radar, even theoretically. Most consensus seems to conclude that all of this Cuba talk is just talk, and it's really just to satisfy one of President Trump's remaining support bases, the Cuban-American voting bloc. There is a substantial Cuban presence in Florida, so maybe this is more political rhetoric than anything else to secure votes. I don't know. However, moving an aircraft carrier is not something that is traditionally done on a whim, and based on his terms so far, every single time President Trump has moved an aircraft carrier somewhere, he has used it. Yemen, Iran, Venezuela, etc. And since Cuba is 90 miles off the coast of Florida, there will be no observable staging of forces like we see around the world. For instance, we knew Venezuela and Iran were about to pop off almost down to the day because the whole world could clearly see the buildup at forward staging areas. However, in the case of Cuba, every potential target within Cuba is well within range of bases in southern Florida. The combat radius of the standard CH-47 Chinook is about 200 miles, and the MH-6 Little Bird is about 100 miles. So they may need to use the carrier to stage from for whatever they have planned, if they have anything planned in Cuba. But at the very, very wave top level, if the U.S. wanted to launch some kind of operation in Cuba, there is little chance that we would know about it beforehand, unlike the 2 previous wars we've started this year. So on the more strategic level, we are working with a total of 5 active fronts around the world right now that the United States is involved in some form or fashion, and 2 additional potential fronts that might open up at some point. The United States is involved in the war in Ukraine, the Gulf War, and of course the war on narcotics trafficking in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. The U.S. is also somewhat involved in a loose collection of conflicts and civil wars underway in Western Africa, and American airstrikes in Somalia have been regular and routine for many years now. In addition to these active combat operations, 2 additional theaters are on the menu, Cuba and of course Taiwan at some point. There hasn't really been any update on either one of these. I'm just giving you the early indications and warnings to keep an eye on Cuba and Taiwan. There's very much debate about both of these locations and what might happen, and it's of course possible that neither of these make the transition to a more active front, but these are the conflicts that could potentially become hot later on. And speaking of the heat, here in the homeland, riot season has begun to spread throughout many American cities and suburbs. This is no surprise to anyone who can read between the lines, but this week has witnessed a sharp increase in riots, street takeovers, and general foolishness being undertaken in the streets. Right up front, all of the incidents that have been observed in the headlines this week are not the result of anything specific. This is purely just due to cultural reasons. Most of the mainstream media are calling these incidents teen takeovers, but these are almost always attended by full-grown adults, and the media is just trying to find euphemisms to avoid pointing out the obvious. This week, there have been 4 high-profile takeover-style events which have occurred in areas not traditionally host to this type of activity. Places like Chicago, Detroit, and the like are generally witness to half a dozen street takeovers every single night, so it's hard to keep track of them because they just happen so often in these cities. But this week, more traditionally upper-scale neighborhoods have observed various exhibitions of churlish behavior, such as in Long Branch, New Jersey, and also in Narragansett Beach in Rhode Island. 2 locations which were at one point staples of wholesome Americana, but lately the neighborhood has gone downhill for obvious reasons. As a result of this rash of takeover events, many towns throughout New England have quietly slipped into full-blown deployment mode, with curfews popping up and being enforced with a heavy hand in an attempt to keep the situation from deteriorating into chaos. So if you are in New England, particularly along the coast, be advised that you will probably see an extremely overwhelming police presence in most public venues, particularly at beaches, over the next couple of weeks. There's a lot of money in the tourism industry up there in the summertime, and local towns know that all it takes is one viral video of dudes dancing on top of cars for people to avoid their town this summer. So spicy times, keep your head on a swivel, be aware of when these crowds start showing up at places, and just be aware. Across the pond, things aren't much better, and societal tensions continue to get worse by the day. Just as a bit of an administrative note, the situation has become too chaotic for me to track personally. It's just too big at this point. I try to cover the high-profile crimes and very big incidents that might result in spicy situations, but right now there is literally a groundbreaking major case nearly every single hour in the UK. There are assaults, murders, mutilations, and child trafficking incidents every single hour, and I just cannot keep up with all of it. It has literally gotten that bad. Even this week, the murder trial of Henry Nowak is not even the biggest scandal to take place today. Last night, there was a mass stabbing involving 6 victims in London, and there's also another mass rape trial which involves a group of Pakistani men getting very light sentences for the assault and abuse of children. There are around a dozen or so more incidents that I don't have time to get into, including a knife-wielding man causing chaos inside a Morrison's supermarket, a stabbing attack resulting from a gang initiation, and a handful of other crimes so bad that I can't even give you the approximate details in mixed company. So, suffice it to say, it's mass hysteria. Well, maybe not that far, but still quite busy in the United Kingdom. There are many stabbing attacks every day. There are many assaults every single day, and it's really hard to pinpoint down where these are taking place, for one, because a lot of the time, well, not a lot of the time, most of the time, the British media has been ordered by the British government to censor this kind of thing. So we're fighting a losing battle when it comes to the information space on a lot of these assaults and really, really horrific crimes, because we just can't figure out that they occur until years later in some cases, like the Henry Nowak trial. In terms of preparing for what comes next, the United Kingdom is still in the early phases, but some elements might be transitioning to a more active approach to handling the sheer volume of horrific crime. Vigilantism is quite literally the only thing the British people have in some cases at this point, which is unfortunate to realize, but this is the reality of what happens next. In some cases, not all, but some, every option for a peaceful solution has been exhausted. In some cases, there really is no option left. This, of course, varies case by case, but many British people are finding that out, and it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And more than that, the British government seems to be rather oblivious about what happens when the average Englishman gets backed into a corner. So suffice it to say, a mass uprising throughout the UK is very unlikely, at the moment at least, but there are increasing numbers of fighting-aged males who are siding with their countrymen to make the attempt to take back their country from the foreign invaders that have been brought into the British homeland, especially the ones which are just absolutely inconceivably violent. Again, many of you have heard this before, so I won't dwell on it too much, but the situation is quite serious, and we may start to see the early indications of more organized attempts to handle the situation. I'll just put it that way. So it ain't over till it's over, and as bleak as the situation looks for the Anglo population of Western Europe, and by extension the United States as well, there are ways of handling these problems. And I'll just leave it at that for now, and I'll continue monitoring the situation in the United Kingdom to see how our brothers across the sea can get by even when the situation gets tough. I'm confident they can handle it one way or the other, but it's going to be a long and hard road to get there. So, speaking of tough situations, the crisis in the Middle East continues to make life interesting for most of the planet as the energy crisis continues to grow by the day. Rumors have been flying out of Washington nearly every day this week regarding President Trump being inclined to restart the war, perhaps under a different name to avoid congressional approval, but nevertheless, the war rhetoric has been ratcheted up once again. On the tactical front, if the conflict is to begin once more, the Iranians have been very clear about what their targets will be, which mostly comprises of desalination plants and oil refineries. The Iranians have also managed to resupply and build more drones and missiles during the ceasefire. This is all conjecture because there's no real way to know for sure, but some estimates are saying that the Iranians might have replaced a substantial number of missiles and drones to the point that they have largely recovered from whatever supply they depleted during the opening days of the war. Of course, the raw material production capacity, like their ability to make steel and aluminum within Iran, took a huge hit because the United States and Israel completely destroyed or severely damaged many, if not most, of the factories around the country. However, the most important industry for Iran right now is the defense industry, and they have been working overtime since the bombs started falling to sprint towards replacing their stockpiles of missiles and drones. How many they have at this moment is anyone's guess, but going off of everything that's happened so far during this war, the United States has done nothing but underestimate the Iranians at literally every single step, which is kind of astounding if you think about it. So as much as the Pentagon likes to look down on the Iranians, there is not one single aspect of how they have fought the war so far where the Iranians have underperformed. They have been punching above their weight this entire time. The Iranians certainly and undoubtedly control the Strait of Hormuz, and they project enough influence over the Persian Gulf to keep everybody's head down indefinitely. So even though technically the Iranians are undermatched in their fight against the United States, technically speaking, as long as the United States keeps fighting the war in the same way, the Iranians will continue to have, if not dominance, that might not be the right word, but they're going to have enough control over a small area to cause a lot of problems, essentially indefinitely. But once again, in time-honored tradition, we will have to see what happens. Continuing to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is an interesting position to take, but it's also what happens when American leadership is painted into a corner, which is exactly what's happened. And as far as the Israelis are concerned, this is exactly what they were going for. In the world of grand military strategy, many famous military leaders throughout history have been noted for leaving their options open until the very last minute, which allowed them to have flexibility for as long as possible. For better or for worse, this is the complete opposite of President Trump's personality, as he favors a completely different doctrine. He favors decisive and bold moves in nearly every aspect of his administration, which is a respectable strategy in business, I guess, but when it comes to warfare, he was by far the most susceptible to this kind of trap. Even for people who wanted to engage in this war, even for the war hawks, even for the military strategists who have been looking to fight a war with Iran for decades now, the way that this has come about has been less than ideal because it's left a lot of people with a lot less options than they thought they were going to have when such a war were to break out. During the opening salvos to this war, President Trump killed the Ayatollah, which limited his options right out of the gate, and this got messy very, very quickly. If he had not killed the Ayatollah and most of the military leadership, I have no doubt that a peace deal would have already been signed. We would already be done with this war. But because the United States killed most of the moderates on the first day of the war, the hardliners are now holding out within Iran and taking the position of making this incredibly painful for the United States. So the exact opposite of what President Trump has said is actually what happened. We did not kill the hardliners on that first day, and now we're dealing with a more amiable regime. Actually, it's quite the opposite. We killed the moderates first, and now the options are limited for getting out of this because the IRGC leadership is basically taking the position of bring it on. Anyone who has ever cracked a military history textbook could see this coming a mile away because this is essentially a very loose correlation with how World War I began. I'm not saying this is going to be a world war again, although you could argue that World War III has already begun in many other ways, but when it comes to the Iran situation itself, it's quite interesting because it turns out that one of the reasons why World War I began and transitioned from a series of smaller wars into one, large conflagration throughout Europe and even Western Asia before transitioning around the world is that a lot of key leaders and key decisions were forced or were not made. For instance, we cite a lot of times the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand as being one of the catalysts for the beginning of World War I. Well, why is that? Why was his assassination so important? Franz Ferdinand's assassination was so critical and so important because he was one of the last dissenting voices, one of the last big voices that urged the Austro-Hungarian Empire to not go to war with Serbia and thus kick off the war. When he was assassinated, he could not oppose to the war anymore, and so it was on, essentially. It's a short version of it. Same thing happened in Turkey with Enver Pasha. Again, the critical people who were trying to force a war ended up forcing a war. So we see the same kind of mentality today in Iran, and this has been a very strategic nightmare to manage because the senior political echelons of the United States have made decisions, they have done things, they've committed targeting actions on the battlefield, but also in the political realm that have resulted in having few options later on. So right now, we're stuck. President Trump has neither a political solution nor a military solution, which is just what the Israelis wanted. And the few allies that we have left are pivoting to China, or in some cases even Russia, all the while our strategic petroleum reserve is being drained to sell to Europe to keep global fuel prices low. What's quite interesting about this conflict is that we don't have to wait 100 years to look back in retrospect and say, oh gosh, now we know what started the war. No, we actually know right now. It's quite clear, so we at least have that going for us. But in terms of a solution, I really don't know what the U.S. intends to do at this point. There are indeed about half a dozen different solutions that would 100% work to end the conflict, but the hard part is getting the ego and foreign influence out of the ear of military decision makers long enough to actually let them see the light and to end this on positive terms. Personally, I think that we're absolutely dealing with a Truman Show situation where President Trump is personally being sequestered from the truth of the military situation on the ground, which is why there's such a huge disconnect between reality and what the White House is saying these days. And breaking this spell is really the only barrier to getting sub $2 gas again, at least within a couple of years. This is most certainly not an apocalyptic all is lost situation. We can get out of this. There are solutions to end this. It just requires our political leadership to get us out of this. I did not declare war on Iran, so I cannot step forward and end the war, right? That's not how this works. Foreign conflicts, foreign wars are squarely in the realm of the executive branch and Congress, but Congress has, shirked their duty on this. So this is now the executive branch's job. And because of that, we have to kind of rely on them. This is not something that we can do ourselves or even help with. So we're kind of at the mercy of the White House when it comes to this war. And they've proven time and time again, they're not interested in listening to us. So that's what makes this hard. That's why we have to kind of prepare for things that are outside of our control. And if the United States goes back to war and the Iranians dutifully respond by blowing up even more petroleum infrastructure, we're probably going to hit that $200 per barrel milestone, mostly for zero military gain. So quite the cliffhanger we end on this week. The stakes are high and potential for another round of war is on the horizon once again. Not only are we not out of this conflict, but we are probably farther away from a peace deal today than we ever have been. This can, of course, be turned around on a single tweet, on a single email. That's all it takes to end this, and then we can move on. But right now, we are still in a state of war, and seeing as it is Memorial Day weekend, we have to remember the 13 service members who lost their lives while fighting this war. Captain Cody Cork, Sergeant First Class Noah Tietjens, Sergeant First Class Nicola Moore, Sergeant Declan Cody, Major Jeffrey O'Brien, Chief Warrant Officer 3 Robert Marzan, Sergeant Benjamin Pennington, Technical Sergeant Tyler Simmons, Captain Curtis Angst, Captain Seth Koval, Technical Sergeant Ashley Pruitt, Captain Ariana Savino.
This Hose Hawk Pro situation has been eating at me for weeks, but I just can't live with it anymore, so I need to come clean about it. Yes, it's true that Hose Hawk Pro uses a German-engineered compression chamber that turns any standard guard.
And Major John Kleiner. All of these service members were killed in action during the height of the conflict. I just wanted to take a moment to remember that this war has not just blown up pipelines in the Middle East and dropped a bunch of bombs on caves. It's also torn apart American families here at home. We should do well to remember that and hope and pray that these are the last lives lost and that a peaceful end to this nightmare can come about soon. The solutions are there. We can end this. We can walk away, admit our mistakes, and move forward. But until then, we can remember the lives lost and pray that there are no more. And with that, let's finish up today with the Intercepted GhostNet reports. Surprisingly, this week's Thursday radio night check-in was absolutely packed with people, which was awesome to see. I guess the holiday weekend gave some people enough time to work on radio stuff, which is fantastic. I know I myself struggle a lot of time to finish up work early enough to hop on the net myself. But anyway, I saw a lot of new people testing things out, trying new antennas, new rigs, all kinds of stuff, and participating in the GhostNet for the first time. So that was really great. Learning new things, keeping skills sharp, and maintaining lines of communication when all other means fail is quite a useful skill to have. We want to be problem solvers, not problem creators, and trying to have more situational awareness even in a grid down or a more censored location, this is going to be very helpful in the long run. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for sticking with me.
Okay, an important video there, our wire channel. Next one is going to be a short one. This will be 4 minutes.
Center. Published by Real Raw News. In Chicago's Jackson Park, along Lake Michigan's shoreline, sits a towering, windowless obelisk venerating a despotic deep stater and a dark chapter in American history. Built of polished granite, the Obama Presidential Center, scheduled to open June 16th, looms like a shadow over the surrounding landscape. Its most prominent feature is an architectural word jumble. 450 letters etched into its exterior form Obama's Selma to Montgomery 50th anniversary speech. But observant people see hidden messages. When rearranged, the letters form a love letter to Beelzebub, a figure in demonology known as Lord of the Flies, insects that often buzzed about or landed on Obama's nose and ears as he delivered speeches during his 8 tyrannical years in power. The 18-acre campus on which the obelisk stands may be evil incarnate, as pedestrians near the construction site have heard blood-curdling screams emanating from the structure after dark. Real Raw News has heard from 6 people who had bone-chilling experiences while traversing the jogging trails that crisscross Jackson Park. To the best of our ability, and to our satisfaction, we vetted the 6 to ensure they didn't know one another and weren't 6 friends fabricating a story for social media clout. Their tales were eerily similar. On May 13th, a 37-year-old Florida woman visiting her sister in Chicago was taking an early evening jog in the park when she paused to gaze at the building Obama had commissioned to honor himself. A cold fear gripped her. She heard a cacophony of agonized voices emanating from the obelisk. The sound froze her soul, she said. I made out 5 or 6 distinct voices, children's voices, overlapping, like drowning out each other. They were crying out, "Help me! Help us!" Then silence. She told RRN she eventually walked away, having convinced herself her mind was playing tricks on her. Yet another woman, a 24-year-old Chicago resident, had a similar scary experience a week earlier. She was snapping photographs of the building when, she said, the letters on the obelisk started swirling around, rearranging into a message that said, "Kill now, hope is gone." Terrified, she squeezed her eyes shut, and as she opened them and looked again, the alphabet blocks were sliding up and down and diagonally, forming the words, "Kill yourself. He has been cheating on you." She dropped her camera as maniacal cackling filled her ears. Nebulous, shadowy figures, 4 foot tall and wearing hooded cloaks, brushed past her, their ghostly, tendril-like digits caressing her face and chest. She screamed at the top of her lungs, and the visions waned. "Never go near that place again. It's evil," she told us. And, most recently, a 47-year-old male walking his dog in Jackson Park froze in his tracks when his hound bared its teeth and growled menacingly at the obelisk. The dog, he said, snapped its jaws at the air and tried tugging him toward the building, but he yanked the leash and commanded the dog to heel. His heart was pounding away in his ears and his arms and legs were frozen with fear, he said. Whispers. I heard whispers commanding me to murder my wife, he said. The other 3 stories we heard were strikingly similar. It's our opinion that the Obama Presidential Center is a domain of evil, and that President Trump should order it razed to the ground. We have no corporate advertisers, nor billionaire philanthropists looking to support efforts to expose the deep state's evil agenda. Every donation, irrespective of the amount, is appreciated and helps ensure our survival in these perilous times.
Okay, raw news.
Oh no, Iran has secret weapons deadlier than nukes. Ah! You guys know nukes don't exist, right? Well, not on any level that they want you to think they do, at least. Notice how all nuke plants are on water. Nuclear plants are almost always located near a large body of water. And when it says almost, there's one that's not in Arizona, and it still has tons and tons of water shipped to it. And you see all this scary nuclear pollution? Well, it's just steam, because nuclear power plants are just making energy from boiling water. Yes, at a fundamental level, most nuclear power plants function like enormous high-tech steam engines. They use heat from splitting atoms to boil water into steam, which then spins the turbine to generate electricity. They're giant water-boiling electricity plants. There's no nuclear energy coming from it. Well, maybe there is, but nuclear sure sounds a lot like new, clear energy, like, clear like water. So yes, I'm telling you, nuclear bombs don't exist. I'm not even really sure atomic bombs do anymore, because have you ever seen the footage from the supposed atomic bomb testing? Now watch some of this with a discerning eye, and you tell me it's not just a little miniature town being blown up instead of a giant fake town like they say. Use a discerning eye.
This house was 6,000 feet from ground zero. Other homes that were closer were incinerated.
It's a miniature model.
Everybody.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay, now cut. It's black. A big explosion. And the miniature models. This is supposedly real footage.
Look at this one.
Watch how this moves. No, seriously. Watch how this moves. It's just a fake miniature model that they're using to put people into a fear state so they can control their minds. Same thing going on up there today. A fallen angel named Franklin Roosevelt, aka Ryan Gosling, once said, "There's nothing to fear but fear itself." And for once, they weren't lying to you. Have no fear, my friends. They're trying to scare and divide us. And unfortunately, it's working. A lot of you have a lot of waking up to do. And it starts by doing this. Click. Of course, all this for entertainment purposes. I know that's really bad toxic fumes coming from a nuclear reactor that's creating scary bombs. Entertainment only.
Yeah, our image guy. Okay, this just came out here. 9 minutes.
Welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And of course, here's the meme of the day, brought to you by 5mind.com. You know, like I said on my last video with Spencer Pratt, I didn't really have much expectation for him. You know, I wasn't so quick to jump on the bandwagon, another relatively unknown person, at least in the world of politics, an outsider. And I mean a real outsider, even more so than President Trump, I'd argue, at least politically. You know, Trump basically has made it clear that he had intentions to run for the presidency since back in the 90s, possibly even the 80s.
I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not. But I do get tired of seeing the country ripped off.
Why would you not?
I just don't think I really have the inclination to do it. I love what I'm doing. I really like it.
Also, it doesn't pay as well.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, I just probably wouldn't do it, Oprah. I probably wouldn't, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country. And if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally, because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it, I think I'd be inclined. I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people, I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off.
There's always been speculation that President Trump would run for office. He's always been involved in one way or another, whether it's funding campaigns or speaking about issues on the news. But Spencer Pratt is different. I mean, Spencer Pratt feels almost came out of nowhere. And so we didn't really know much of him, especially in the early days of his campaign. I wasn't willing to take that extra step and be like, yes, this is the guy. But now, as I've been exposed to him for as long as I have, my friends, Spencer Pratt is it. I mean, this is literally the guy. You know, with someone like this jumping on the scene at the level that he has, it usually comes with 2 points of doubt. Is this guy authentic? Well, you can't ever tell 100%. But if you're going just off vibes and impressions, I mean, I don't think it gets much more authentic than Spencer Pratt. And then the second point is, does he get it? You know, it's not necessarily an IQ thing, because there's people who have like literal Mensa level IQs who overthink everything or turn everything into these like theoretical academic concepts, and it kind of blinds them from being able to, you know, see what's obvious and sitting right in front of them. I guess that to say it's not purely an IQ thing, although IQ is certainly a part of the equation here. But the question you would have is, you know, is Spencer Pratt or any politician coming from the outside in, do they have the ability to grasp the issues, to see what is clear, to apply common sense and basic critical thought? Do they have deductive reasoning? Are they able to see an issue and go straight to the core, isolate the core component and find a clear solution? And that, my friends, I think Spencer Pratt, honestly, he excels at that. And so very quickly, he's gone from a relative unknown that many people either doubted or waited to learn more about so you can make a real judgment, to now, frankly, just being an absolute superstar. And personally, I think somebody who can really extend the olive branch and I think pull votes from any side. This guy almost intrinsically just understands it. And he's highlighting concepts that I think are so lost and forgotten in the world of politics, and probably a lot of others can learn from. Let me show you guys exactly what I'm talking about here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks. So yeah, I'm singing Spencer Pratt's praise. Some people might think that's cringe, or that's being a fanboy, or jumping on the bandwagon, but I don't think of it as such. No, I'm actually a very simple person. I'm just looking for specific things. You know, I've got my litmus test when listening to people, especially in political rhetoric. And if you're checking certain check boxes, you know, if I'm hearing certain things, well, it's pretty simple for me. Immediately I know you're the guy. Take a look at this one.
So what I'm going to ask you, Spencer, what do you say to somebody like her who's walking through the same filth I am and is now going to vote for the same stuff?
Yeah, I'm not actually trying to convert these people, because they're clearly living on in a different dimension. The people I'm getting to vote for me, their eyeballs work. They see their pockets for all their tax money going to these drives, going next to their cars. My older sister called me the other day, and she didn't realize she drove through human poop or whatever, and she's gone to the car wash 6 times, and every time she gets in her car, no matter what, it just smells. Even my older sister, who has voted for every single Democrat since she was 18, she's voting for me. All of her friends, anyone that doesn't want to drive in poop, step in poop, step on a fentanyl needle, have their kids see naked drug addicts on the sidewalk, these are all the people that are voting for me. So the people that would vote for Nithya Raman, who's actually been in charge of the homelessness and housing for the city council for the last 3 years, who works hand in hand with Mayor Bass. If you want more human poop, drug addicts, no lights, potholes, everything that's failing, these are the people who are failing.
That, my friends, is exactly what I've been looking for. It's what I've been preaching for years. And in my view, that is the clearest sign that you're dealing with somebody who is authentic. You're dealing with somebody who actually believes the stuff that they're saying, and most importantly, isn't beholden to a bunch of, corporate lobbyists and ideological donors that are looking to steer the politician a certain way. It's how you know you're dealing with somebody who isn't making all of their decisions based on what the focus groups are saying, but rather somebody who has identified clear problems, knows that these are serious issues that people are dealing with, and knows that these are issues that go beyond partisan divide. This is a person that is simply focused on righting the wrongs of former administrations, of doing the right thing. And this, my friends, is what's missing in politics, and especially in GOP politics. The typical criticism that you hear all the time of these rhino-style old guard Republicans. They're too scared of the media. They're too scared of Democrat and left-wing narratives. Politicians who are too scared to do the right thing or say the right thing because they're looking at the demographics and they're thinking, oh, well, we need this many Democrats to show up for us, and we also need to appeal to all these independents and left-leaning independents. And then what do you get? You get a milquetoast fence sitter, or you get an inauthentic rhino. More importantly, you get the friggin' status quo. You get constant compromise and no actual real reform. And while this may seem like the smartest way to run a campaign, at the end of the day, it's not. It's actually the dumbest way. It's the easiest way to become a political hack, a surefire way to get primaried, especially in the era of MAGA. We're seeing a whole lot of that these days now, aren't we? And it's also not the way to build a coalition, to build an actual grassroots base. I think that's what President Trump taught everybody. We saw the rhino reaction to Trump back in 2016. Oh, he's corrosive, everything he's saying. He's scaring off the moderates and the Democrats, therefore he can never win. But no, instead what he ended up doing was convincing many of those Democrats and moderates that he was right. He was speaking to the actual issues. And most importantly, the one thing I've been saying forever, you don't get elected as a reform-style candidate promising change, and you certainly don't get elected as a Republican by appealing to Democrats, especially far-left Democrats. No, you beat them by bringing people to the polls who might not have voted previously. And that right there, folks, that's the most important thing. That is the magnum opus of a true outsider politician. That's how you get elected. You don't go around trying to convince people who hate you, and actually in this case, probably want you in a gulag or dead. You don't go appealing to these people. No, you form your own base. You rally your own base. Just human psychology right off the rip. In free Western societies, usually the political divide splits around 50-50. You got a small percentage on both sides. Those are the diehards. And then you've got the more malleable people in the center who can be convinced either way or who feel disenfranchised and are basically sitting out of the process. Well, those are the people that you go for. You go for your own base, you galvanize your own base, and then try to pull over small percentages of those important, more middle ground voters. That, my friends, is the way that you get elected, and that is especially true in a place like California. Any blue state, any purple state, you don't show up pretending to be a Democrat with an R next to your name. No, you show up and present yourself as the authentic solution. And that's exactly what Spencer Pratt is doing. He's cutting through all the BS. He's not there to simply reaffirm the, current popular ideology in LA that clearly hasn't worked. He's there to convince people that they've been led astray. He's there to make a point unapologetically. And you know what? In so many cases, we've seen people react very positively to these style of candidates. And like I keep saying in these Spencer Pratt videos, I'm not here to say that he's guaranteed to win, but one thing I can guarantee is that he is going to overperform expectation. That I could pretty much guarantee you, because there's people who are going to show up to vote who aren't showing up in the polls. Not to mention, I think voter enthusiasm for this guy is going to be through the roof. And those are the most important factors, whether you can get your base to the polls and whether or not you're expanding said base. He appears to be doing both, and that, my friends, is a deadly frickin' recipe. Anyways, that's what I got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Okay, another one. I want to do the shorts for the last hour. Got quite a bit of short ones now. Three minutes.
Law, officially being the key word, stating that they are now going to allow E15 to be added to fuel and gasoline year-round. Here's what that actually means in English, okay? E15 is ethanol, okay? It is something that they add into fuel to reduce the amount of fuel that you need to use, okay? Now, typically, you've seen it before. At a gas station, there'll be a sign on the pump that says may contain up to 10% ethanol, okay? Now, There's been times where companies have put more or less ethanol based on the weather, the season, the heat outside, things like that. Additionally, like I've been talking about for months, there was a time during World War II where the federal government gave oil and gas companies in America permission to add additional levels of ethanol to the fuel in order to reduce the effects of fuel rationing. I have been saying that this had been happening for months since we entered into Iran. This is why you have been running out of gas more quickly. This is why you are experiencing rough idle when you're sitting in the school parking lot waiting for your kids to get out and your car kind of shakes every once in a while. This is why when you turn on your engine, your gas needle drops more than ever. And this is why if you have a car that tells you how many miles you have to empty, no longer makes any sense. Okay, it is up and down all over the place. It is because you are experiencing reduced fuel efficiency. Okay, now, as of yesterday, Congress authorized oil and gas companies into America to begin adding E15 to fuel, meaning now we are going to experience up to 15% ethanol. So for those of you who don't know what that means, let me explain how it is actually going to affect you. The idea is you are going to pay a little bit less at the pump, hopefully, okay, if the problem doesn't continue to get worse. Now, you pay a little bit less at the pump, but the side effect of that is you run out of gas faster, meaning you have to put more gas. The last 3-4 months, we've been getting gas lighted into believing that that is not what was happening, but it has been. Everyone has pretty much universally agreed you don't smell gas at the pump anymore. You run out of gas more quickly. Your car is not driving as far as it used to, or now it costs more to fill up, and you got to fill up more often. Okay, it is because they have already been doing this. They are now just realizing they can't keep playing in our face and act like we aren't going to notice it. Okay, so here's what you need to do. Well, really, there's nothing you can do. If you drive an old car, sorry, you're screwed, okay? It is going to drastically reduce the engine life that you have, even if you drive a modern era vehicle. It is going to be very bad for people who drive older cars. Now, if you happen to drive what society would label a beater, you know who you are. Your car is going to start to fall apart very quickly, okay? So you may want to, I don't know, maybe stockpile gas now, if that's an option, or start to develop plans on how you can buy a vehicle that is a little bit newer with a little bit less wear and tear on the engine, because this gas is going to start tearing cars apart. Let's be clear. All right, so please, as always, share the video, tell your friends, prepare yourself, protect yourself, and don't tell nobody about it.
Okay. Did we ever play this one?
Citizens govern themselves,
5 minutes.
not kings, not foreign powers, not unelected institutions, citizens. And now, that principle stands at the center of one of the most explosive political battles in modern American history, the SAVE Act. The critical debate over citizenship and voter integrity starts here. The SAVE Act, the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act.
Looks like it's an important
Its
one.
mission?
Here.
Require documentary proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections. Under the proposal, voters registering federally would provide qualifying documentation, a U.S. passport, birth certificate with qualifying identification, naturalization paperwork, or other approved proof of citizenship. Election officials would face additional responsibilities tied to eligibility verification and federal compliance. Supporters call it basic accountability. Their argument is blunt. You prove identity to travel, to work legally, to secure countless rights and transactions. So they ask, why should participation in American federal elections demand less certainty than ordinary bureaucracy? To supporters, this is not voter suppression. This is citizenship verification. Election integrity, ballot legitimacy, public trust. When critics firstly oppose the legislation, their argument, federal law already prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal elections. They warn the SAVE Act could create real-world obstacles for legitimate voters, Americans without passports, women whose legal names changed after marriage, older citizens with incomplete records, military families navigating paperwork. Critics say implementation could become expensive, complex, and risk unintended barriers for lawful participation. Supporters answer immediately. If citizenship is already the legal requirement, why should proving citizenship trigger controversy? That is the collision course. But the political fight does not stop at partisan lines, because the SAVE Act exposes something deeper: division inside the Republican Party itself. Conservative activists have increasingly accused elements of the GOP establishment of moving cautiously, negotiating endlessly, or failing to aggressively advance election security legislation. Among frustrated grassroots conservatives, one label appears: Reno, Republican, in name only. The accusation that some Republican officials campaign like conservatives, but govern with hesitation. Procedural delay or strategic retreat. Those lawmakers strongly reject that criticism. Many say they support election integrity, but activist frustration continues growing. And in today's political environment, grassroots voters increasingly measure leaders by votes. Bills advanced, bills blocked, promises kept, promises abandoned. This debate is bigger than one bill, bigger than one election cycle, because beneath every hearing, every procedural vote, every furious headline, stands one unavoidable question: who decides America's future? Supporters of the SAVE Act believe the answer must remain unmistakable. American citizens, verified, protected, certain. The ballot is more than paper. It is authority, it is sovereignty, it is the mechanism through which a republic survives or loses the confidence of its citizens. The SAVE Act is no longer just legislation. It is a national test. Debate the policy, know the facts, watch the vote. America was built.
Okay, another important one. Okay, the next two, I'm not sure if we played them or not. Mask guy, okay.
Panes hanging upon bathroom walls, nor the digital reflections filtered through cameras and curated for applause. Tonight, we speak of the mirror each human being carries within themselves, the silent reflection that asks the most terrifying question imaginable: who am I, when the world is no longer choosing for me? You may call me the voice behind the mask. There was once a time when tyrants ruled through chains, iron shackles, prison walls, public executions. But modern empires learned something far more efficient. You need not imprison the body if you can imprison identity itself. Tell a man what he must be. Tell a woman what she must become. Tell the frightened child what thoughts are acceptable, what clothes are acceptable, what love is acceptable, what voice is acceptable, what future is acceptable. And if they dare step beyond the script, mock them, fear them, vilify them, reduce them into headlines and hashtags until humanity itself dissolves beneath the weight of labels. Because labels are useful things, are they not? Far easier to hate a category than confront a person. Far easier to fear a symbol than understand a soul. And so society divides itself into tribes and trenches, not because people are incapable of compassion, but because frightened systems survive by teaching human beings to fear difference.
Interesting video.
A population united by empathy is difficult to manipulate. But a population perpetually disgusted with one another? Now that is manageable. You see, throughout history, those in power have always required an other, a group to blame, a group to ridicule, a group upon whom fear may be projected like shadows upon a wall. Yesterday it was race, before that religion, before that nationality, before that class. Today, for many, it is those who dare to live outside the expectations handed to them at birth. The gay man, the lesbian woman, the transgender soul, the human being who looks into the mirror and whispers, "This mask they gave me does not fit." And what a tragic irony that is. Because the very people screaming most loudly about freedom often become terrified the moment another person exercises it differently than they would. Freedom for me, but not for thee. Acceptance for my identity, but suspicion toward yours. You ask what I think of such things. I think it remarkably strange that humanity, standing upon a dying planet beneath infinite stars, still spends so much energy policing the harmless existence of strangers. Tell me, if two people love one another honestly, how does this diminish your humanity? If a person seeks peace within their own skin, why must that threaten yours? If another soul walks a different path through the labyrinth of existence, why must your first instinct be condemnation rather than curiosity?
Yeah, I know what you're
Perhaps because
saying,
many have
Terry.
confused
Bad
tradition
luck,
with
right?
truth. And traditions, like governments, are not sacred merely because they are old. Some traditions uplift humanity,
That's what we had
others
yesterday,
suffocate it.
Carol.
Now, do not misunderstand me. Acceptance does not require agreement in every philosophy, nor identical beliefs, nor ideological conformity. No. A free society is not built upon forced sameness. It is built upon the understanding that another human being possesses the same right to exist peacefully as
Very
you.
interesting video.
That is the foundation. Not obedience, not uniformity, human dignity. Because once a government, a mob, a movement, or a culture acquires the authority to decide which identities deserve respect, it will never stop at one category. History has demonstrated this repeatedly. The machinery of dehumanization is never satisfied. It merely searches for its next target. And so tonight, I say this not only to those who identify as gay or trans or different from the expectations placed upon them. I say it to everyone. You do not have to understand every person completely in order to recognize their humanity. You do not have to live another person's life to acknowledge their right to live it. And perhaps the greatest prison humanity ever built was not made of concrete or steel, but expectation. The expectation that every soul must fit neatly into approved boxes crafted by frightened minds generations ago. But human beings are not assembly line products. They are chaotic, complicated, contradictory, beautiful, each carrying private wars invisible to the crowd. And if someone finally finds peace by loving openly, living honestly, or becoming who they truly believe themselves to be, then perhaps the compassionate response is not rage. Perhaps it is relief. Because authenticity, true authenticity, is one of the rarest things left in this world. Now there will be those who hear these words and recoil. Some will call it weakness, others corruption, others madness. But I would ask those people a simple question. What kind of freedom fears harmless self-expression? What kind of civilization becomes endangered by compassion? What kind of strength requires another human being to suffer silently simply to preserve your comfort? No, that is not strength. That is insecurity draped in righteousness. A truly free people do not tremble before individuality. They celebrate it. Because diversity of thought, identity, expression, art, love, and existence is not a flaw in humanity. It is humanity. And perhaps that is the final truth hidden beneath the mask. Not that we are identical, but that we are all fragile creatures desperately seeking meaning, acceptance, and the courage to exist without fear. So to those who feel hated, isolated, mocked, or hunted simply for being themselves, know this. Your humanity does not require majority approval. And to everyone else listening tonight, remember that empires profit when neighbors despise one another. But free people learn to stand beside one another despite their differences. Because liberty that applies only to the familiar is not liberty at all. It is merely preference masquerading as principle. Good evening. And may we one day build a world where no soul must ask permission to be human. Good evening. Tonight, we speak of mirrors, not the polished panes hanging.
Okay, that was another good one here. Important one. Benny has 8 minutes on the shooter. This came out. Eight minutes.
Death on the ground, the White House. Ladies and gentlemen, this is real, and it really happened seconds after President Trump announced a peace agreement between the Gulf states, America, and Iran. All parties agreeing to the framework for peace. The Strait of Hormuz opening. Stock markets are ripping. Oil is crashing even now on a Saturday, a holiday weekend. President Trump working late into the small hours of the morning and through the day to get this done. The world was rejoicing and celebrating when the shots rang out. And because it's the White House and because it is a massive breaking news environment, you could actually hear the shots in multiple live shots on White House grounds. This is crazy. Go ahead and watch this reporter react live to the actual hail of gunfire that you could hear during her stand-up shot in a place they call Pebble Beach here outside of the White House, where all the reporters do those
that President
famous
Trump has said a
stand-up
deal is close, only for the two sides to remain far apart.
That would be scary.
That is crazy.
Close, only for the two sides to remain far apart.
Dude, look at the actual fear in her eyes, and the
Hey, what do you think?
30 shots.
30
shots. That's a lot of shots. 30 shots fired outside of the Secret Service gate at the White House. The Secret Service screaming to the scene, shooting a gunman, potentially two gunmen. Let's see.
Oh, two of
This
them.
could be a coordinated attack. You can see, obviously, a defensive position on the roof of the White House. 20 to 30 shots, which are a lot of shots, breaking out. Please, Lord God, keep people safe. White House on lockdown as shots fired nearby. No word yet on what happened. Shots fired at the White House. Secret Service with guns drawn tell the reporters to stay inside of their little press pen here. You can see Secret Service walking all kitted out the grounds of the White House in a defensive position on lockdown. 30 shots fired. ABC reporter Selena Wang was in the middle of filming when the shots rang out. Let's start with the good news here. President Trump is confirmed safe after a gunman opened a fire at the White House. Just 2 weeks ago, a gunman opened fire in the vicinity of the White House and was confrontational with Secret Service and was shot. They were trying to approach J.D. Vance's motorcade right across from the White House. It was leaving on its way out of town.
Yeah,
Massive operation, ladies and gentlemen. President Trump was speaking at the White House at the time. President Trump is confirmed safe. They're trying to kill your president again. You missed again. Outside the press briefing room doors right now, guns drawn, told all of us to go inside. Okay, so what happened here? Listen to this. They just left the cameras rolling at News Nation. You can hear the Secret Service ordering the reporters to run. Okay, so here's what we know so far. A man, potentially two men were shot by Secret Service. That's what we know. One of them may have been a bystander. At least one of these men brandished a weapon and started opening fire at the White House. We hear it is a pistol. That's according to multiple reports. So a handgun, and started shooting at the White House. They were able to shoot at the White House 3 times. You want to know why the glass of the White House is bulletproof? This is why. Did one of the bullets hit the White House? We don't know. We know that the president is safe. But Secret Service returned fire. One man is unconscious, not breathing. The other is conscious and breathing, both taken to the hospital. No injuries to the Secret Service agents or President Trump, who is inside. FBI is assisting, developing more. So those 20 shots, some of them were from the assailant, others were defensive shots fired by the Secret Service. I'm not going to jump to conclusions here and try to guess who it was. It was a Democrat. Wow. New video shows the moment that gunfire broke out. Secret Service acted very quickly.
On Capitol Hill is weakening.
Crazy.
There's shots fired. We have to get down.
It's going to 9 o'clock.
So that is what we know. Around the time the media reporting heard gunshots outside of the White House, scanner traffic reported a shooting at 17th and Pennsylvania Avenue. This is the entrance that you use in order to get into the White House. I've used it many, many times. There's a security operations post there. You can walk up to it and be turned away, let's say, if you're not invited to the White House. This is exactly where this individual approached and then was effectively gunned down. There apparently, according to reports, one civilian was struck in the crossfire because, of course, the White House, big tourist attraction, a lot of people traveling there. Start of summer vacation. It's the end of May here. There are reports of shots fired near 17th Street. 2 hit by gunfire. Suspect and possibly a bystander. Taken to the hospital. Suspect is in critical condition. Second person is in serious condition. U.S. Secret Service agent was shot at and returned fire. No injuries in the Secret Service. Thank God. 2016 incident, ladies and gentlemen. This is the start of the we oppose political violence, Democrats trying to kill Trump list again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 different attacks on President Trump and President Trump's life. And now you can add number 19 today. Because if this individual is firing at the White House, you know what they're planning on doing. You know what the point is. The point is to kill your president. And I just can't help myself. But this is such a banger.
Why do you think so many people may be trying to kill you?
They go after consequential presidents. They go after presidents that do things. If you look at what I've done, we've turned this country around. We've taken a country that was actually a dead country. It was dying very rapidly. And
already took Venezuela, already took Iran, already took Cuba, already took your girl. I'm worth $10 billion. I own more land and gold. I'm worth $10 billion. Well, that's the number y'all are told. I staged a hit for the ballroom. I really need my ballroom. I did it for the ballroom.
Ladies and gentlemen, pray for the president. Pray for the president. No laughing matter. And pray for the Secret Service agent. And pray for peace. God bless all of you.
Why do you think
have a great weekend?
That was a big video from Benny. Got a couple short ones here with her.
Down in the next 24 hours. Trump is to make an emergency announcement at 4:30 today. Then he shared an image showing the U.S. flag over Iran as he cancels weekend plans to remain in the war room. So it's about to get heavy. Not only that, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev says it has received information about a potentially significant air attack that could occur within the next 24 hours. So that's 2 countries in the next 24 hours. But wait, there's more. Taiwan's National Security Council Chief Joseph Wu says China has deployed more than 100 Navy, Coast Guard, and other vessels across regional waters stretching from the Yellow Sea to the South China Sea in the Western Pacific. So we have something big going down in Iran, Ukraine, and possibly Taiwan. Not only that, but I'm pretty sure that Trump is peed off that his daughter was targeted for assassination by the IRGC. Now, this all comes at the eve of Pentecost. Now, we know what the second seal is, and that is a lot of death. Every day we get so much closer to going home. Listen up, y'all, some serious stuff.
Another good one from her. This one's a minute, I think.
Two friends lost their father this week from cancer, and this is him. He's actually holding the urn of their mother that passed away when they were just kids. And I say that he's their dad because he raised them after their mother died. My friends are wanting to do a service and cremate him, but they had no clue that he had gotten so ill from his cancer, and they'd like to do something to remember him by. And I'm just asking if anybody feels led to help this family. I would really appreciate it. We were pretty stressed out yesterday trying to figure out how they were going to pay for the service, and God put it on my heart to do this to see if I can get anybody to help. And if not, prayers are also very appreciated because they definitely need them right now. Venmo and my Cash App is going to be at the top if you feel led to help. And I really, really appreciate it, y'all. I've had a lot of family and friends pass away in the last few years, and I just could not imagine not being able to afford to lay them to rest properly. Listen up. All right, so.
Okay, 2 important ones. Next one is 7 minutes. Not sure on this one, you guys.
Voter registration forms directly to non-citizens. The state confirmed the practice during a Senate hearing, and the packets were pre-addressed so recipients can send them straight to county clerks. But get this, the problem is those clerks are banned by state law from checking immigration status. That means anybody who fills out the forms gets processed with zero verification. So tell me, do you think this was an accident or is it by design? I wonder which one this is. Let me know in the comments. But the evidence was laid out in a floor speech that is now going viral, and you need to see what was caught on camera. Let's get into it. My name is Tom. I'm with the Daily Beltway, and I'm also a White House correspondent. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. It helps us keep bringing you the truth. So the admission came during a Senate hearing when a director from the Illinois Department of Human Services confirmed that voter registration packets were sent to non-citizens as part of routine outreach. The materials included simple forms that were pre-addressed to local county clerks. All the recipient had to do was check a few boxes, sign it, and go ahead and mail it back. Let's check this out. It's bad.
These are being mailed out to non-citizens. They can easily fill out this document. It goes straight to the county clerks. The county clerks, by statute, can't check immigration status. And I wonder how many illegals we have on the voter rolls today. Today, I rise deeply disturbed by the reports that the Illinois Department of Human Services has been mailing voter registration materials to non-citizens. Let that sink in. A state agency under Governor Pritzker's administration is admitting that non-citizens were sent voter registration packets that were pre-addressed to their local clerks. The director admitted this in a Senate hearing. This is unacceptable and must stop immediately. The right to vote is one of the most sacred rights in our republic. It belongs to American citizens, period. It's not something that J.B. Pritzker or anyone else gets to decide to hand out to illegal immigrants. And this right is exactly why America is here. The rights of citizens to vote, not illegals. This is why the U.S. Senate needs to pass the SAFE Act immediately. This is why citizenship verification matters. This is why common sense election safeguards matter. The Democrats call these protections unnecessary or extreme. They don't need the SAFE Act. But what's actually extreme is allowing an agency director to knowingly engage in election fraud on behalf of a state of Illinois.
Knowingly engage. That's the difference. They know they're mailing these to non-citizens, and they're doing that anyways because guess what? They're scumbags. Continue, Adam.
Frankly, this demands more than a press release. I'm calling on President Donald Trump's Department of Justice to investigate these actions immediately. If Governor Pritzker's administration, his handpicked agency director, knowingly facilitated efforts that would enable illegal immigrants voter registration, the people deserve a full federal investigation and full accountability. Illinoisans and U.S. citizens deserve elections they can trust. They deserve a government that protects the ballot box and reserves it for citizens only. Folks, these are being mailed out to non-citizens. They can easily fill out this document. It goes straight to, these are pre-addressed. It goes straight to the county clerks. The county clerks, by statute, can't check immigration status. And I wonder how many illegals we have on the voter rolls today. This must stop. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's insane. So I actually know Adam Niemerk, and I'm going to send him, he doesn't know I'm doing the video, but I'm going to send him Harmeet Dillon's phone number, and hopefully the Trump administration gets on this. So that was Illinois state legislator Adam Niemerk, who is exposing the entire operation on the floor. He held up the actual forms being mailed and walked through how the system works. The packets go out to non-citizens. The forms are designed for easy completion. They're pre-addressed to county clerks, and those clerks are barred by state statute from asking about immigration status before processing the applications. And that means there's no checkpoint, no verification, just a direct path onto the official voter rolls. But Niemerk asked a question everybody is now asking. How many ineligible voters already registered in Illinois? And this is happening all over the country. With mass distribution of these packets and no citizenship check at the local level, determining the scale of the problem is nearly impossible without a full audit. The right to vote is reserved for American citizens under the Constitution, not some, Donald Trump policy. It's been the same thing since the 1800s, 1700s. Come on, guys. It's not something state agencies get to hand out as part of a government mailing program. And yet, Governor Pritzker's administration has not explained why voter registration materials were included in packets sent to people who are legally prohibited from voting. County clerks receive the completed forms, but they have no legal authority to verify the person's status. State law forbids them from even asking. I go vote and I show my ID. Sir, you don't need that. I'm like, I'm going to show it to you anyways. But federal law makes it illegal for non-citizens to vote. But the processing system has no mechanism to enforce that requirement. The situation is exactly why the SAVE Act matters. The federal legislation would require proof of citizenship for voter registrations, and Democrats have dismissed it as unnecessary, because they're using it to cheat. And cases like Illinois prove the opposite. Without federal safeguards, states have wide latitude to expand access in ways that sidestep basic eligibility rules. And Niemer called on President Trump's Department of Justice to launch an investigation. And if a state agency knowingly sent voter registration materials to non-citizens, that demands federal scrutiny without question. Americans deserve elections conducted under rules that clearly separate citizens from non-citizens. And blurring that line erodes the integrity of the ballot box and the foundational principle that self-government belongs to those who hold full membership in our republic, like citizens. But let me know in the comments. I want you to type audit if you think Illinois needs a full review of its voter rolls, or rigged if you think this was intentional. And if you got value from this news update, tap subscribe, share this report. My opinion is next. It's a little long one, but this isn't a paperwork error, guys. This is a state government using taxpayer resources to facilitate voter registration for people who are not legally allowed to vote. Pre-addressed envelopes, simple forms, no verification. And the people responsible for processing those forms are banned by law from asking one question that matters. Are you a citizen? This isn't protecting access. This is protecting fraud. The Constitution reserves the vote for American citizens because citizenship means something. It means you have a stake in this republic. When the state agencies treat voter registration like junk mail and send it to anybody in their system, regardless of legal status, they cheapen that citizenship and compromise every single legitimate vote cast by an actual American. And Illinois owes its citizens answers. And Trump, come on, it's time to do something about it. Put these people in jail, investigate, arrest everybody. Do it, finally, please. We're asking. Stay alert, share this report.
Okay, important video there. Winding down here, you guys. See how many short ones I can get. We haven't gotten her in a while.
One of the key figures in the massive Minnesota fraud scheme is reportedly singing like a karaoke machine at 2 a.m. after 3 margaritas. And suddenly Ilhan Omar is probably stress ordering antacids tonight. And if you were involved in stealing pandemic money, Dr. Oz has a message for you. Maybe don't unpack for the weekend.
I'm telling you, if you're a fraudster, do not walk away from this press conference. Run. Because we are coming after you. We have lots of weapons to be able to use in order to accomplish that.
If you hear a knock at the door before sunrise, it's probably not Amazon. Plus, it's finally happening. The day President Trump has been waiting for. A new Federal Reserve chair is stepping into the spotlight, and Trump was basically a proud dad today.
I expect he will go down as one of the truly great chairmen of the Federal Reserves that we've ever had.
Easy there, Mr. President. The guy hasn't even found the office coffee machine yet, but Trump clearly thinks he found his economic Tom Brady. And wait until you see the comedic moment that happened right after. It's peak Trump. Hit that like button, share the show with your friends and family, and if you're new here, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Let's begin with some breaking news. Tulsi Gabbard is resigning from her post as Director of National Intelligence, and the reason is absolutely heartbreaking.
Tulsi Gabbard is resigning effective June 30th because of her husband's recent diagnosis of an aggressive form of bone cancer. Our thoughts, of course, are with Ms. Gabbard and her family, Director Gabbard and her husband, Abraham. She said that Abraham has been her rock since they've been married, and she submitted her resignation letter to the president and 2 members of the senior staff, announcing that her last day would be June 30th because of this diagnosis of her husband's bone cancer. Unfortunately, this is something that Gabbard says that she cannot continue to manage doing 2 jobs at that time. So she will continue serving in the role of the Director of National Intelligence, overseeing the CIA, National Security Council, other agencies, but will leave June 30th because of this tragic news
Our thoughts and prayers are obviously with Tulsi and her husband Abraham as they take on this fight. Family always comes first, so Tulsi's doing exactly what she needs to do, stepping away from the grind of Washington to stand by her rock. She did a phenomenal job while she was there, shaking up the intelligence community, and we wish them nothing but the absolute best. They are in our thoughts and prayers. But as we know, the wheels of Washington never stop turning, and the Trump administration's massive cabinet shakeup is officially moving full steam ahead. While the intelligence community prepares for a transition, over at the central bank, the changing of the guard is already complete. It's out with the old and in with the new. Jerome Powell is officially packing up his calculator and hitting the road because today, Kevin Warsh was sworn in as the brand new chairman of the Federal Reserve. And let me tell you, the room at the White House today was absolutely pumped. But leave it to President Trump to
have a great night.
Steal the show with a
Okay.
little stand-up comedy.
Love ya. We'll see you tomorrow.
The walls may be finally
trying to get a lot of shorts in now.
They've been marked. Oh, but first things first, TikTok. You know me. This is purely for entertainment purposes only. All things stated here, just speculation. We're just thinking out loud. I got new boots, new boot goofing. Let's go. In fact, they have been sealed. They've been marked for quite some time. And this will be the last time I ever hesitate to make a video when my father says move because of hurtful, slanderous, judgy McJudgery Christians that attacked me last summer. I'll never hesitate again. And on that note, I can see whose forehead has been sealed. And again, on that note, I can see whose forehead has not. Revelation 7. Then I saw another angel coming from the east, having the seal of the living God. He called out in a loud voice to the four angels who had been given power to harm the land and the sea. Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we have put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all of the tribes of Israel. The other day I was laying in the tub and I opened up TikTok after prayer and boom, there it was. One of them who had been sealed. It is written all over your face. It's as plain as the nose on your face. Hi, I'm Auntie and I'm a seer. And in October 2024, my father took me hand in hand beyond the veil, teaching me all of the truths and giving me all of the proofs of all of the heavenly realms. And I have not looked back since. It is written all over your face. Truer words have ever been spoken. And I can see the truth on people because exactly this. And with that, I can see whose forehead has been sealed. Like I said, the 144,000, their foreheads, they've been sealed. After I saw this man, I heard my father say, there you go. And I heard him say, scroll. I scrolled to the next video and boom, there was another man whose forehead had been sealed. Whew, 2 in a row. What are the odds? I don't know about that, but how about 4 in a row? Because the next video I scrolled on, there was another. And then again, there was another. 4 in a row, 4 men, all with foreheads who had been sealed. There is another person on this app, a friend of mine, who I noticed, I'd have to say last summer, that his forehead had been sealed. I brought it to his attention. Apparently he had noticed it not too long before I had mentioned it to him, but he had actually seen it to himself. 5 people now on this app that I have seen whose foreheads have been sealed. Now, for me, that makes 6. The foreheads of the 144,000 have been sealed. So if you're wondering where we're at in the Bible, you can check that one off of your list. Oh, I love you with my great big gigantic heart. I do. And I cannot wait to hang with you in heaven. Repent, forgive them all. Be careful how you entertain a stranger, for you may have just entertained an angel unaware. It is almost go time, people. This is not a drill. This is what we train for. Needs to check.
Okay, that's the latest on Auntie.
CNN. Yeah, CNN. While trying to defend her record on homelessness. And this wasn't a friendly interview. This was one of those moments where even CNN had to stop and basically ask, so what exactly are you doing out there?
When you talked to Jake Tapper in 2023, you said that your goal was to end street homelessness in LA by 2026. It's now 2026.
And we haven't ended it.
We have not ended it, and we're not close to ending it. How are you so off?
That's not a question. That's a performance review. And you can already tell this interview is about to go off the rails. Meanwhile, Gavin Newsom is still doing what Gavin Newsom does best, talking about Donald Trump. Actually, scratch that. It's more than talking. It's closer to fixation. I mean, at this point, it's like watching someone go through a breakup that they insist they're over while they're updating their Instagram story every 12 minutes about how they're totally fine. That's Gavin Newsom. More on him in just a moment. And then there's Thomas Macy, who just took a major political loss. And instead of quietly fading out like most politicians would, he's already hinting at a comeback storyline nobody saw coming. Like the video if you're enjoying the channel. Share it with family and friends. And if you're new here, hit subscribe. Welcome to the show. Remember when Thomas Massey said this back in November?
And the president himself and the vice president, they're taking a big loss this week because after months of fighting, I am winning this week with Ro Khanna.
How did that work out for him? Kentucky voters went to the polls last night, and let's just say they decided it was time to clean house. 7-term incumbent Congressman Thomas Massey shown the door. Adios.
Donald Trump is the general of the Republican Party.
Now, usually when an establishment politician gets booted by the voters, they give a nice, boring speech, a little grace, maybe a pinch of humility. They thank their staff, they wish the winner well, and they quietly exit stage right. But not Thomas Massey. Instead of pretending to be classy for just 30 seconds, Massey opened his concession speech with this.
I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede, and it took a while to find Ed Galrein.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass just got...
Okay, I'm gonna end it with what's his name? It's 8 minutes. This will be the last one, 8 minutes.
Saturday, May 23rd, 2026. Hello, I am John Michael Chambers, and this is your War Report. I ask you to listen with love, as where we go one, we go all. And the following report is an excerpt from the free JMC Broadcasting weekly newsletter. You can subscribe to that for free at jmcbroadcasting.com. Patriots, the stage is set. The players are in position. And the script, written in classified briefings and sealed indictments, is finally being performed for the world to see. Let's talk about casting, shall we? Chairman Xi, central casting? President Trump has a way of cutting through the diplomatic fog with a single, unfiltered observation. Xi, tall for a Chinese man, isn't he? And then the killer line, central casting. What does that mean? It means the people you see on the world stage, the leaders, the dictators, the puppet presidents, are not always what they appear. Some are born, some are made, and some are placed. Central casting, the intelligence community's term for assets who are cultivated, positioned, and activated when the moment demands. Watch Xi. Watch his movements. Watch his messaging. The more you understand central casting, the more you see the machinery beneath the headlines. Fauci. No statute of limitations for treason or crimes against humanity, folks. Calm down. They told you to trust the science. They told you to obey. They told you the experiments on human beings were for your own good. Now the reckoning comes. There is no statute of limitations for treason. There is no statute of limitations for crimes against humanity. Not in military law. Not in the tribunals that are quietly being prepared. Dr. Anthony Fauci and his network of pharmaceutical accomplices are learning what patriots have known for years. The bill always comes due. The masks are off. The emails are public. The testimonies are locked in. It's a military operation, folks. Keep watching. Nuremberg 2.0 is coming to a theater near you. Not a metaphor, a prediction. The same legal architecture that convicted Nazi war criminals is being dusted off and aimed at the architects of the greatest medical fraud in human history. The theater is opening. What do central casting and military tribunals have in common? The same director. The same deep state that placed assets in foreign governments also placed assets in our own agencies. The same network that hid the truth about gain of function research also hid the truth about election interference, about financial corruption and fraud, about the dismantling of our borders. And now the same military apparatus that has been quietly preparing for this moment is stepping onto the world stage. Nuremberg 2.0, not in Germany, in America. Not for Nazis, for traitors. Your role in the audience. You are not a passive observer. You are a witness. Watch the casting. Who appears? Who disappears? Who's positioned for what role? Watch the tribunals coming soon for you to see. The first dominoes have fallen. The rest will follow. Watch the media melt down. When they cannot control the narrative,
What a good one, huh?
they will try to discredit the messengers. Your role in the audience. Again, you are not a passive observer. You are a witness.
There's that 17
Watch the
number.
casting. Who appears? Who disappears? Who is positioned for which roles? Watch the tribunals coming soon. The dominoes have fallen. The rest will follow. Again, watch the media meltdown. When they cannot control the narrative, they will try to discredit the messengers. Do not be shaken. You were shown this for a reason. Theater is opening. Popcorn is smelling good. The truth is performing.
Popcorn.
And the final act? That is the one they never wanted you to see. Central casting is not a conspiracy theory. It is a recruitment strategy. And the recruitment for Nuremberg 2.0 is already complete. The defendants, well, they just don't know it yet. You got to join me in 107 live for the Patriot.
Okay, everybody. Wow. What a day. What a day. Everybody stand by. If anything breaks, I'll come on, but I got to save my energy for tomorrow evening. So after 3 o'clock, maybe 3 or 4 tomorrow, I'll see what happens. Yep. Busy, busy, busy. Everything's coming out. So Lucy's mom, JJ, yep, and we'll sometimes, I don't know what, if I find stuff important, I have to come on, I'll come on. There's so much coming out right now. So thanks, Maj. Okay, Wango, Lucy, Carol, Tim. God bless everybody. Love all. Remember, please hit the like, stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith, and never give up. Signing off for a Saturday evening news. Another good day, Mentel. Chico dude. We'll see you all. Have a good rest of the weekend. Like I said, if anything breaks, I'll be on. Chico dude, signing off.